It's been called the downfall of Diddy, but are we also witnessing a further downfall of Kanye West? The Grammy-winning artist that some believe is a musical genius recently went on a crazed social media rant that included, among other things, a call to free Puff. We're going to dig into the latest posts and alleged collaborations and connections between Kanye West and Sean Combs.
The courtroom had already endured its share of chaos during this trial, but no one anticipated what was about to unfold. Everything changed when the prosecution unexpectedly dropped a name that sent a shockwave through the room: Kanye West. Instantly, the atmosphere stiffened, jaws clenched, and all eyes turned to Diddy. His expression flickered from rehearsed calm to a flash of pure panic.
Sean Diddy Combs has dominated headlines around the world for months, and as you know, not for great reasons. But over the last couple of weeks, another embattled rapper has been in the spotlight: Kanye West. And their two worlds have now collided once again, thanks to one of West's apparent tirades on X, formerly known as Twitter, which we'll get into, and it is something to say the least. West and Combs' friendship goes back years. They collaborated on one of West's singles in 2015, and later that year they worked together on an album. At the 2022 BET Awards, West presented Combs with the Lifetime Achievement Award, called him his idol, called him his favorite artist. West said he still went to Combs for advice, and that Combs inspired many of his life choices, even his wife choices, perhaps an apparent reference to his then-wife, Kim Kardashian. But according to The Mirror, Combs has said that West inspired him as well. In 2009, Combs reportedly said that the other night I go to the Kanye West concert and I'm going there to see Kanye do his thing. I don't have anything but high expectations. The concert changed my life. I won't lie. I was so impressed and inspired. It was beautiful, and I fell in love with hip hop again. And I want to say thank you, Kanye, for giving me that. However, just a few months after West presented Combs with the Lifetime Achievement Award, the relationship seemed to sour between the two of them when Combs took issue with West's t-shirts that said "White Lives Matter." Now, he said during an appearance on The Breakfast Club that he thought the shirts were tone deaf. He would go on to reportedly say, including on an Instagram post, that Black Lives Matter was our slogan. That wasn't our slogan to go share with nobody else. You have to be unapologetically black and love your people and love your tribe first. Combs also added, what the press and what fashion is doing, thinking this is a joke, when right now all America is planned for is poverty, incarceration, and death. So before I can get to any other lives matter, which all lives matter, you know what I'm saying, that Black Lives Matter, don't play with it. And he added, don't wear the shirt, don't buy the shirt, don't play with the shirt, it's not a joke. Well, not long after those comments, Kanye West apparently posted screenshots of text conversations, messages between himself and someone identified in the thread as just Puff, seemingly a reference to one of the many nicknames that Sean Combs has had over the years. So West says in part in these messages, I didn't like our convo. I'm selling these teas. Nobody gets between me and my money. This is my grandfather texting you now. Never call me with no BS like that again unless you're ready to green light me, because anybody who got on that tea is me. Out of respect for everything you've meant to me, I'll be quiet as Virgil, meaning Virgil Abloh, who passed away. But now I know how I've hurt people I love with threats.
It was one of those moments that needed no words his face conveyed at all. Something huge was about to explode. The attorney rose, voice steady, holding documents, and simply asked, let's talk about your connection to Mr. Kanye West. Silence followed, deafening. Diddy didn't speak, nor did he blink. His entire body seemed frozen in place. The judge cast a long, scrutinizing look, waiting for a response, but none came. Instead, what followed was a timeline and intricate sequence of events linking Diddy to Kanye in ways the public had never suspected. At first, it appeared to be about music deals, collaborations, maybe business ventures, but then the tone shifted. The attorney revealed emails, text messages, and financial records that painted a far darker picture. These weren't just two artists working together, they were powerful figures entangled in something much bigger, darker, and hidden. According to the prosecution, Diddy and Kanye had met multiple times over recent years in secret locations, sometimes under aliases, sometimes with no official documentation at all.
He seemed to follow it up with, come do something illegal to me now, please. Now, the alleged Combs side of the conversation responds, N-word, send me address. Let's stop playing these internet games and don't feel threatened. You'll be fine. Just love. To which West reportedly replies, this ain't a game. I'ma use you as an example to show the Jewish people that told you to call me that no one can threaten or influence me. I told you this was war. Now gonna get you some business. West apparently followed up with another post in which Combs allegedly texted him, as soon as I land, we'll meet face to face, to which West responded, N-word, F you. Now, in the final part of this alleged exchange between the two rappers, Combs allegedly wrote, I'm just trying to talk to you as a black man, and I'm talking to you because this is hurting our people. Stop. West apparently responded, anything you text, I will post. I love you, and you guys are breaking my heart. I accept your apology in advance.
These weren't casual meetings, they weren't about albums or tours. They involved highly controlled, clandestine gatherings, complete with shell companies, encrypted messages, and massive wire transfers. The courtroom's energy grew tense as the assistant, who had testified earlier about Diddy's disturbing rituals and chaotic hotel rooms, was called back to elaborate. They described Diddy and Kanye not merely as friends or collaborators, they were partners, but in something far more personal. Witnesses recounted witnessing Kanye at private events matching the descriptions of the infamous freakouts. The assistant claimed Kanye wasn't just an observer, he was actively involved. One particular incident in a Los Angeles penthouse, rented under an alias, was detailed.
Big development today. This juror. We knew there was an issue with a juror, and the judge, if I'm understanding what happened today, the judge basically accused the juror of making misrepresentations to the court to what? Stay on the jury? And the judge had wanted to dismiss this juror, but then there was some pushback from the defense, and now my understanding is there's not a resolution. He might wait till after the weekend to make a decision on this juror. What is going on here?
Yeah, it seemed like this was kind of a big focus of today outside of Kanye West trying to attend court today. But as far as today goes, a lot of people wanted to know what was going to happen to juror number 6. Now, a lot of the time, especially earlier this week, they were very tight-lipped as far as just what the details were surrounding what the issue was. But what we've learned from the judge later this afternoon is it was a lot of kind of inconsistent statements that this juror was making all the way going back to voir dire. And so what the judge said that he looked back at the transcript because there were conversations with this particular juror that happened twice already at this point at the robing room. So unfortunately, it was something that we don't see in the transcripts, nor are we listening to it happen when it's happening inside the court because it's happening behind closed doors pretty much. But as far as the judge is concerned, the issue came up after that offhand conversation that this juror had with jury staff, just talking about kind of making that travel from New Jersey to New York. And that's a big problem, right? Because in New Jersey, that's not where the jury pool was taken from. They were taken from counties here in New York City, Westchester County, Bronx County, and even here in Manhattan too. And so this juror told the staffer that he recently moved to New Jersey with his girlfriend and said something along the lines of, it may not be permanent. I've been staying there the last couple of weeks. And so the juror was asked if he stayed at his home. It was it either in New Jersey or was it in the Bronx? So at one point he's saying he's spending 4 or 5 nights here in New York City at his apartment here. But on the other hand, he's saying he's in New Jersey where his girlfriend or fiance is there, but also with their baby daughter. And so in voir dire, this particular juror said that he lives in the Bronx with his fiance and daughter, but in the robing room, he said that he lived in New Jersey. And so the judge was like, there are several inconsistencies. The issue here is the juror was unable to follow instructions, and those were the simple instructions that were given to these juries during their questionnaire portion as far as where do they live and who do they live with. And so the judge was saying there were serious issues with this juror's candor, and that he didn't believe that they needed to do any further inquiry as far as questioning this juror once again. So that would make it, I think, questioning him, 3 or 4 times probably at this point, and that the court is concerned about the changing of the answers, the inconsistencies, and that the omissions and inconsistencies kind of played a role into the judge's decision, which initially he was going to dismiss this juror. I think he was pretty concerned that if this juror were to go and deliberate, that this could cause more issues later on in the process. But then the defense stands up and they're like, you know what, Judge? These answers don't really affect this particular juror's ability to serve on this particular jury. He says this is kind of a thing for a lot of people who live in this area, that they have significant others who live in New Jersey, or it's vice versa, where people who live in New Jersey have significant others in New York. and that this particular juror should be given the opportunity to explain himself again. And so the defense was really kind of honing in on the idea that these jurors have been very attentive throughout this entire process of the trial so far.
Diddy and Kanye arrived with separate entourages but quickly cleared the room of anyone unapproved. What followed, according to testimony, was a night that blurred the lines between excess and exploitation, a disturbing blend of rituals, dominance games, and ego battles disguised as entertainment. As these details emerged, the courtroom's atmosphere shifted from shock to disbelief and horror. What was being revealed went beyond celebrity misconduct. It was about two of the industry's most influential figures wielding power to manipulate and control behind closed doors. The prosecution then presented a money trail, large undisclosed payments wired to offshore accounts, fees, retreats, and appearances that didn't align with normal business practices. Each transfer was linked to trips and events matching the assistant's descriptions. When asked to explain, Diddy remained silent, his face pale, hands clenched, clearly overwhelmed. His usual aura of invincibility was crumbling.
Like I always mention, during our hits, Jesse, that a lot of these jurors are paying attention, they're taking notes, and both parties, as well as the judge, kind of commends the jurors for being so attentive while inside the court. And so the defense was really kind of adding to that and said, I'm worried that the court equals or equates inconsistencies with lies. And so the defense said, we've taken strides to get this diverse jury, and we will go backwards kind of as far as just, less diversity if this particular juror was dismissed, because one of their arguments previously is that the government just wanted to dismiss this juror because this particular juror is black. However, the government took offense to that, and they said that no additional inquiry is necessary. Mr. Donaldson suggesting that this is motivated by race, but it's really just about preserving the record. And the judge said, okay, well, if he indicated that he splits his time in New Jersey and the Bronx during voir dire, this would be one completely different story. But he said during the voir dire process, during jury selection, that he lived in the Bronx. So he said it's not just an issue of the juror wanting to just be on the jury, but he also said that his bills go to New York, and it seemed like the juror was particularly just wanting to stay on this particular case. And so the judge was like, we don't need him to reconcile these inconsistencies. There shouldn't have been inconsistencies in the first place. And the defense is like, well, we compromise the integrity of the process if we make this jury less diverse. And they say that this issue everyone knew about, and this was Brian Steele at this point making this argument. But then both sides were kind of like, no, we did not know about this. This was just an issue that came up this week. Then what was interesting, Jesse, was there was this moment where we thought that we would get an answer to what was happening. The judge dismissed a lot of us from the courtroom. We were outside of that courtroom for about 20 to 25 minutes. We thought when we were going to come back, we'd learn what would happen. And unfortunately, we do not know the full scope of what's going to be happening next.
Yeah, that's interesting. You don't always see that, where the judge is pretty firm in a decision and basically makes the argument that the juror was saying whatever they needed to say to stay on the jury, and yet kind of persuaded, it seems, a little bit by the defense's arguments. So now going to wait till next week to find out if this juror is going to be dismissed. That's why we have alternates. You would think that would be the biggest part of today. It wasn't. Kanye West shows up. Now, he is a friend. He is a supporter of Sean Combs, and he shows up in court today, or to court today, in dramatic fashion, but he doesn't quite get into the courtroom, does he?
No, he doesn't. Unfortunately, Kanye West, or Ye as he's being called now, he did not get his way. So he was not inside the main courtroom, nor did I see him inside the main courtroom at any point today. So it's unclear, and hopefully they do not know this, but I don't believe the jury has any kind of notice that Kanye West was trying to get into the courtroom. He was able to get in the courthouse. From what I understand, is he was sent to the media overflow room with Christian Combs, which is Diddy's son, as well as Charlucci.
The final blow came when the prosecution played a sealed audio recording, taken without Diddy's knowledge. Recorded in a New York hotel suite, the tape captured Diddy speaking to Kanye about keeping the circle tight, controlling everyone involved, and preventing another Cassie situation, a veiled reference to damage control and silencing. The implications were stark. As the recording played, Diddy's composure shattered. He slammed the table, stood abruptly, shouting. The judge swiftly warned him, but his outburst confirmed the worst fears. The scene erupted into chaos. Reporters scrambled, headlines raced to be rewritten, and social media exploded with speculation. Diddy left the courtroom without a word, his face haunted, surrounded by a battered legal team. Meanwhile, Kanye's name was added to the witness list, subpoenas might be issued, and the ripple effects could be historic.
Who's been at a lot of days of Diddy's trial, as well as even the pre-trial stuff, and he's a good close friend of Diddy as well. But as far as Kanye West being inside the main courtroom, that didn't happen. And from what I understand, he was only in the overflow room for about 20 minutes before kind of making his grand exit and leaving. But I'm sure he'll try to get back to the courthouse, possibly later on in this trial.
And I understand he was sitting next to Sean Combs' son, so yeah, he was there for a little bit and then left. Would have been interesting if he was actually in the main courtroom. Okay, now I want to get into the substance of what happened today. And by the way, even before the government's first witness of the day was called, there was something major that happened. There was a series of text messages that were introduced into evidence, right? One was from Sean Combs to Christina Coram, KK, his former chief of staff. And another one was from Cassie to Combs' former security guard, D-Rock. These were introduced into evidence, right? Why were these so significant? What were these messages?
Yeah, so this was at a point where the jury was present, so they were able to see and hear about these text messages. And finally, the exhibit screen is back on for the gallery after Jane has completed her testimony. So we were finally able to see these exhibits as well. And so the first one was data that was collected from Christina Coram's cell phone. And so they showed messages from Christina Coram to Diddy on November 21st of 2023, where Diddy, and he had the name Puff Music in this particular message, said, "Make sure Robin isn't doing anything dumb and paying her rent on time." Now, if you think about that in context, November of 2023 was around the time that Diddy was already paying for Jane's rent at this point. And so I think these messages had to do with Jane and just the fact that Diddy was paying for her rent around this time.
So if I remember correctly, she had texted basically the rent was paid. And the reason that's so significant, right, is because the prosecution says, oh, him paying her rent, you know, him telling her she can't do OnlyFans. It's a way for him to control her financial well-being, finances, wealth. It's a way to exert coercion for sex trafficking purposes, right? That's what the prosecution has been trying to say, that force, fraud, coercion has been used to induce her into these sex acts with male performers, commercial sex workers, that's sex trafficking. It happened in all these different locations. So the more they can show, oh, he's paying for her rent, you know, that's significant. Now, the defense's point of view, I guess, would be she knew what she was getting into. She was getting the benefit of this relationship. He was paying for things for her. So it's interesting to hear that. And obviously for Christina Coram, the more the prosecution can say assistants were a part of this, that's how you get to racketeering conspiracy. That's how you get to him using his inner circle, his staff, his assistants to facilitate crimes, to facilitate prostitution, to facilitate sex trafficking. It's all important for racketeering. Okay, sorry to interrupt. There was another message that came in, right?
This case was no longer just about one man's alleged crimes, it was about the entire network, the circle, the system that enabled and concealed it. Evidence suggested Diddy didn't act alone, and Kanye might not be the only big name involved. Rumors of more subpoenas, more tapes, and more evidence swirled. What started as an investigation targeting a single individual was morphing into an exposé on the culture of silence within the music industry. The strange interviews, cryptic lyrics, and abrupt disappearances that had long been dismissed as coincidences now seemed connected. The truth was pouring out like a flood, and Diddy's empire was on the brink of collapse. This wasn't just a scandal, it was a reckoning. And if the connection to Kanye unraveled, it could mark the beginning of one of the most significant exposes in entertainment history, revealing not only abuse and control but the depths of power, protection, and the lengths people would go to keep the truth buried. Once one domino falls, the rest follow, and the world watches as the entire house of cards begins to tremble.